This is the Tree of Life, Season 12, Chapter 9. In this episode, we will be elaborating another form of structural adjustment, namely, a nonlinear structural bypass. What is a nonlinear structural bypass? So we see that a structural bypass involves the creation of a hybrid structure within a dissonant space through sublimating verbalization. We also see that this hybrid structure causes displacement events within path parsimony, as the convoluted path substitutes retrospectively through causal reordering within the conjoined consensuality. These displacement events are the product of the negational hybrid structure created through the dissonant space. So too can we see that usually individuals are part of multiple hybrid structures at the same time. These secondary structures can cause nonlinear displacement events within path parsimony, just as the negational hybrid structures do. These nonlinear displacement events have the same effect as with the hybrid structure upon path parsimony, that is, they represent the path displacement of the convoluted path to path parsimony. Just as hybrid structures can involve some self-conscious bodily rhythm, through the affirmation of some impulse in release, integrated into that structure, so too can these secondary structures represent the linking of distinct individuals' bodily cycles or rhythms together. Since we see that affirmation, or expression of some bodily cycle, or rhythm represents some tension release, we can see that in the elimination of negation within that hybrid structure, there would be a tension release manifesting as expression. From all of this, and the interconnectedness of the conjoined consensuality, we see that nonlinear structural bypasses would be the result of the formation of a hybrid structure, which produces oscillations, through the conjoined consensuality. Let me give you an example. Suppose person A, person B, and C form a trigonal hybrid structure, where impulse 1 is affirmed for person B, and impulse 2 for person C. Likewise, the dialectical impulse, impulse 2 is negated for person B, and impulse 1 negated for person C. Now, let's say that some parallel hybrid structure exists within the conjoined consensuality between person C and person D, relative to E. Let's say that this structure happens to be chiral with the first structure. Now, because C is in both structures, the second structure is a secondary structure to the first, which means it can produce nonlinear displacement events. What we see is that the negation represented for person B, relative to impulse 2, and for person C, relative to impulse 1, is likewise chiral to the secondary structure. We also see that emotional coupling, described this season as the linking of affirmation of an impulse to a bodily rhythm or its expression. Thus, we see that person C is emotionally coupled to both B and D. This means that there will be some overlap between their corresponding rhythms. This means that if impulse 1 is dialectical as between persons B and D, then there will be a feedback loop corresponding to that impulse. Thus, if for one the impulse is negational and the other it is affirmational, the stability of each will be linked. From this we can see that the oscillation described in past seasons, witnessed occurring within affirmational or hybrid structures, produces a feedback loop which flows through the common person, being in this case person C. In other words, person C acts within the conjoined consensuality as a medium for the preferential elimination of negation causing release with respect to a given bodily rhythm or cycle in person B, with preference to D. This is what we call a nonlinear structural bypass, because it eliminates the negation underlying the expression of an impulse through a secondary structure of an uninvolved pair of third parties. That's the end of the podcast for today.